Today on the Star Trek Critic, the most toys. But before we go any further, it's time to pay respects to David Rappaport, who attempted ending his life 2 days into the filming, and sadly was successful just 2 months later. It must have been rough for the crew to continue the show, and for Saul Rubinek to take his place. As usual, points are taken away for each error. The first point lost will be for the shuttlecraft Pike, named after Christopher Pike, since it is too small. There's not even enough room for an engine. See, the only place for the engine is where they have the hytritium stored. They are getting hytritium from the Zebalian trader Kivas Fajo to neutralize a tricyanate contamination on Beta Agni 2. This show's gonna be a tongue twister. Worf says I number 1. To go to that planet and back will be about 32 hours, so I know how long of a time this episode covers. If Brent Spiner twitches this time, I can't take a point because an android might do that after he just got zapped. Watch the ship on the right. It stops moving during the explosion, so -1 point. 1 point lost for a captain's log talking down to the audience like we forgot that explosion during the commercial break. Kivas Fajo has the personality of a used car salesman. Wesley says I number 2. Either Riker is onto him or this is foreshadowing. Riker mentions the Grissom. Didn't that blow up in Star Trek 3? And of course they have an emergency to go to, so they can't stick around to investigate. The next point is lost for opening credits 6 minutes into the show. This is how people talk to foreigners. They get close and shout at them like they're nearsighted and deaf.
It took great effort.
It looks like Data's not impressed at being a piece of his collection. The next point is lost for an obvious stunt double. Kivas shows off his priceless collectibles that he stole from the prop department. The original Salvador Dali painting, called Persistence of Memory, however, in real life is only 9 by 13 inches. What he has is a poster like the one I have. So it looks like this scam artist got scammed as well. This animal, thought to be extinct, looks a lot like a hand puppet. Data says he is not Sir, however he is because he's an officer in Starfleet. Data does not say I love you, but Fajo is so self-centered he says I know. Data tries to sell himself to the Andorians. Geordi and Wesley break into Data's apartment to see what they can sell. He never felt it was quite finished. That's an android joke. They're both thinking, hey, maybe Fajo will trade Data for a painting made by Data the android. This looks like a Bible, but in reality it's the collected works of Shakespeare. Data always fell for Riker's bluffs. That's foreshadowing. Aww. Wesley is impressed by all of Data's honors, while Geordi calls Data what he really wanted to say to his face the whole time. Data and Varia have their first fight. Varia accuses Data of trying to find her weaknesses, and it looks like he was successful. And then he calls her the left fielder. This is a great scene. Geordi is in classic denial. The one point I have to take, though, is because neither Captain Picard or Commander Riker recommend he go talk to Counselor Troi. The next point is lost for recommending Worf to take Data's place. Worf is Chief of Security now. Data's replacement should have been the backup crew or the ops pilot on the night shift. This line is from Hamlet, Act 1, Scene 2. Data feeds the hand puppet. Fajo calls Data a military pacifist, which means he knows nothing about military service members, just like typical left-leaning Hollywood. And Data did not enlist in Starfleet, he's an officer, another sign of Fajo's ignorance. He asks if Data has ever killed. Data says no, but in his past he might have fired a ship's phaser at an enemy at one time, I'm not really sure. Fajo tries to make Data feel guilty if he has to kill for self-defense. What an asshole. Data agrees, it's not murder if you're in a life or death situation and killing the other person is the only way you can save your own ass. This has to be the most hideous outfit in the entire costuming department. No wonder Data doesn't want to wear it. This is 100 dinkers of phenoplaque. 1 point lost since some of the parts of his uniform that were splashed don't dissolve. Fajo admits to a guilty pleasure. Shout out to LeVar Burton for wearing the blind contacts, but 1 point is lost because he actually looked at the visor before he flipped it over. Look at this, Deanna was waiting for Worf to walk by like the little creepy stalker that she is. Deanna tries to do her counseling job and Worf says, I am a Klingon. Klingons do not give in to personal problems. In reality, everyone tells Deanna to mind her own business, then they go talk to Guinan. Worf says thanks, and Deanna's thinking, it worked, I'm gonna have sex with a Klingon soon. According to this, the second and third trips were only 16 minutes apart. That's impossible, so -1 point. Look closely, what Data said at the beginning of the show and what is recorded here don't quite match, so -1 point. Geordi's denial phase paid off, he knows something's up. Unfortunately, you never learn what a Vilton sex idol really is. This is Toph, a 3-nostril nose picker. Frozen Data blinked right here, so minus 1 point. This is an android's version of passive resistance. Hopefully it won't come back to haunt him. Wesley says I number 3. That's what she said. The next point is lost here. If Hytridium is so volatile, they would not launch it in a probe. According to a source on IMDb, this concentration is impossible in the physical world, so minus 1 point. Riker says I number 4. Fajo wants the most sophisticated android in the universe to sit in a chair. How insulting. Since there's no guarantee Data can see the combination from that angle, I can't take a point. Aww. Fajo asks Data if he knows the left fielder. Data mentions his favorite movie whenever he can. Here's where Data falls for Fajo's bluff. I'm pretty sure he was bluffing. This looks way too much like the cave on Risa, so minus 1 point for Ryu set. Dr. Crusher is an expert on the subject here. Someone went to a lot of work just to sabotage the water. And this is something you definitely don't want your girlfriend to say to you. So who's flying this ship? Again, it must be Wesley in command. Beverly talks about how expensive tricyanate is to produce. I thought they didn't use money in the future. This is something they should have looked up right when Fajo contacted them, so minus 1 point. Wesley says eyes number 5 and 6. 1 point lost for not talking to anyone on that colony about their mission to save them. Varya says let's get out of here. The code ends on a different button. Either she has her own code or the directors didn't notice. Did you ever notice every shuttle in the entire galaxy is the same? This really is a poorly planned idea because even she knows once they're out, Fajo could just shoot them. Data gets into a good old-fashioned fist fight. Yes! There goes Varya, all because she listened to Data when he put her on a guilt trip. That's why Fajo blames Data for her death. Now for the standoff. This is actually a really good scene. His speech is really good, and it reminds me of something I heard a long time ago.
Well, I double dog dare ya! I triple dog dare ya!
Data says, he wants a double dog dare? He's got it. Data says, I'm sick of your shit. My question is, where did the phaser blast bounce off of Fajo's shield? Thankfully, the transporter is sophisticated enough to deactivate any weapons in transit. Of course, the transporter is impossible, but I can't take a point because without the transporter, there would be no Star Trek. Data lies to Commander Riker. Of course, whenever he does something like that, we just say he's only being human. The last point lost is here because the security guard would never have his back to a criminal in a cell. Shout out to the writers for this exchange, since it turns out Data not having emotions can really piss off someone who is trying to make him angry. Jane Daly has 60 screen credits including Soap, The X-Files, and Moonlighting. Nehemiah Persoff lived to be 102 with 200 screen credits including Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, Gilligan's Island, The Time Tunnel, and Battlestar Galactica. And Saul Rubinek was born in a German refugee camp with 175 credits including The Family Man, The Brady Bunch in the White House, and Boston Legal. The Most Toys, one of the best episodes of Season 3, which must have been brutal to make due to the drastic cast change, gets a score of 82. Yes! Thanks for viewing. Be sure to leave comments below, click that like button, the share button, subscribe button, and I'll see you again soon with a better audio. Thank you.